Could I please have your attention? Stop what you're doing and listen.
DOD45.
Hey, welcome everybody to the DOD45 Show. This is the extended, I guess we'll call the extended versions of episodes the following week. So this is called The Dish, First, Worst, and Thirst, where we get to learn more about last week's guest, who was Buck65, with his first, worsts, and favorites. So we'll just get right into it. Take a quick moment to mention a few things from last week's episode with Buck65. He had mentioned the movie The Beaver Trilogy. It's an old movie, and was directed by this guy named Trent Harris. I'm bringing it up because while I was editing the footage, or editing the episode last week, I was trying to find pictures of Trent Harris, and I came across this a news article that Trent Harris had written, like a eulogy for my film professor at the University of Utah. I went to film school for a couple of years. Anyway, I found out that the professor had passed away last year in February, and so I just wanted to give condolences. It's a year late, but I really appreciated that guy, Kent Maxwell. He was he kind of meant a lot to me. He made a big difference in my life. There are two people that made big differences in my life and in my art. And I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but one of them was my art teacher from high school, and then this guy, Kent Maxwell. He's told me while I was going to film school, he said, well, you ought to stop spending your money on this school and just go make a feature film. You're already way beyond what we're going to be able to teach you here. So I went and shot my first feature film. So then that was thanks to him. I learned a lot from him. He was a cool guy. And anyway, he was good friends with Trent Harris, who directed that film, Beaver Trilogy. So I don't know why I wanted to bring that up. I just wanted to kind of pay tribute to him. So anyway, the Beaver Trilogy.
Very nice.
Yeah, thank you. You met him you met him.
Yeah,
when we were first dating. Yeah. He was an eccentric guy.
not just when we were first dating, because you would go over there quite a bit to edit different projects.
Oh yeah.
Out at the Utah Film Center.
Yeah, and our first date was a premiere of my movie Luck and Rat Poisoning. Yeah, and that premiered at this place that Kent Maxwell guy worked. Anyway,
The film, I think it was called the
Utah Film Video Center. Yeah, it was a cool place, and that kind of went down. And
oh, did it?
I think so. I don't think it exists there anymore. And as I mentioned in the episode with Buck65, Trent Harris, Kent Maxwell invited Trent Harris to come teach a screenwriting class, and so Trent came and taught us how to write screenplays. And
Okay.
so yeah, I haven't watched the Beaver Trilogy movie yet. I'm trying to find it. It's available online at a place called Internet Archive. That's the only place I could find it. There's also a Beaver Trilogy Part 4 out that came out in 2016. I guess Trent's kind of milking that one because it was a big deal in Utah. Like, people talked about it all the time. Kent Maxwell talked about it all the time. So that's that. So thanks, Buck65, for bringing that up last week, and it's got me to find out about Kent Maxwell, who I cared a lot for. I really liked that guy. All right, so let's. This is it. This is the dish. Let's just send you right into it. Buck65's favorites. First, worst, and thirsts. Sorry, I'm trying to think of
all of his favorite things. All Buck's favorite things.
And the
least
things
favorite things.
And yeah, and but so this is how the season's gonna go. This is probably how we're gonna go forward. The first week, you'll get to meet the guest, and then the following week will be the episode, the extended dish segment. Okay, anything else? Does that make clear? I'm struggling because we recorded this already and the audio didn't record, so I can't remember what I've said and what I didn't. But I guess
this is good because now you can watch two instead of one super long.
Even though the Buck65 episode was just 3 hours.
They're all gonna be long.
But yeah,
The 45 now stands for 45 podcasts within one.
Well, and it's kind of what I like about it is you got to learn about Buck 65 on last week's episode, and now this week it's a little more fun. You know him a little bit more, and so all right, okay, here we go.
Everybody loves more Buck 65. Okay, bye.
All right, let's go right into the dish first, worst, and thirsts. What was your first concert you went to?
I'm going to admit this for the first time right now because it's always been a little bit of a dirty secret for me. And you guys, I'm guessing, might be a little too young to even know who this is. But when I was a kid, me and a couple of my, friends from my town where I grew up went to see Samantha Fox, who was like this British, kind of one-hit wonder type person, but was really more of like a poster on people's wall than anything else. And especially in the UK, I think. Just terrible. And we had the worst seats. It's not like you can even see her or anything. It was so stupid. So I usually don't like to count that one because, I was so young and my reasons for doing it were just like, so stupid. It had nothing to do with the music. But I was thinking about this because I know that this question has always come up in the dish with, people that you come on and you do this with. So I was thinking about it a couple days ago, and I had to get a timeline straight of concerts that came through my town when I was growing up because I couldn't remember, did this person come first or did that person? And so I got the clarity I was looking for from one of my savant friends who has a great memory for this sort of stuff. And it was Michie Mee, who's a Canadian rapper who was signed to First Priority. So she was label mates with MC Lyte and Audio 2 and people like that. And she's sort of seen as like the first big Canadian rapper to like sign a US record deal and kind of put Canada on the map. And she was like legit great. Her first, 3 or 4 12 inches are all classics in my book. And then very shortly after that, by a matter of maybe a month or two, I saw Public Enemy in like 88 or 89. And there was another recent one. I think maybe Carnage was saying that around the same time he saw Public Enemy and Flav wasn't there. Flavor Flav was definitely there for the show I saw, but they were all late. And I think it might have been the first show of a tour, and they were late because they got held up at the border coming into Canada. And they felt really bad about being so late. And so I remember at one point Chuck said on the mic, we want to make it up to you. We want to show our appreciation for you guys waiting around as long as you did. And they performed Welcome to the Terror Dome for the first time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Before it came out.
Yeah.
Before it was released. So I was among the very first people to hear Welcome to the Terror Dome. So that was a treat.
That's cool. That's cool because they were fucking huge at that time too. And it's just cool when artists do stuff like that where they actually feel bad that they showed up instead of just going through the routine.
Because a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't seem to care. So that really, that was great that he did that.
That's awesome. Who was your first celebrity crush?
So I'm pretty sure it was Dolly Parton.
Oh, yeah. Pre or post breast implants?
Probably
so great.
Yeah, probably post. But I would have been a kid. And at the time, I can remember this clearly, and I had the opportunity to talk to her for my radio show years ago. And I told her this. I said, most of the kids my age at the time were really into Farrah Fawcett, but I was the one person where, for me, it was Dolly. And when she was like, young, she was, still, but like so beautiful and so incredibly talented.
Yeah, she really was.
Oh my goodness. And so it was Dolly for me. And then probably relatively close to the same time, because I was really big into Three's Company when I was a kid, Suzanne Summers.
Yeah, Suzanne Summers.
But I also want to shout out, because this is another one that Carnage mentioned in his, which really rung true for me, was Thelma from Good Times. Bernadette Stanis. Oh my goodness. But Dolly was number one, and it was a real thrill to tell her that she was my first crush.
And she's so great and gracious.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm sure that she was just like, maybe.
She was. I said that to her. She said, "Well, I hope you still love me." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, Dolly."
She's so fantastic. Your first MLB stadium that you saw a live game at?
Olympic Stadium in Montreal, 1983. There were a few summers in a row where my dad and I took the train from Nova Scotia, where I grew up, to Montreal, which would have been an 8-hour train ride or 12-hour train ride or something like that. And I remember it like it was yesterday. Steve Trout started for the Cubs that day, and Al Oliver was playing for the Expos and hit a home run. So
that one you never forget, right? That first.
Yeah. And then that was, I mean, an unbelievable experience for me. And then the second I ever saw, I alluded to earlier when Brad was here, I saw a game in Cleveland Stadium the last year before they tore that stadium down. They played the Rangers and Nolan Ryan pitched. And that would have been, like I said, I think 90 or 91, whatever the last year for Cleveland Stadium was. And so, to be able to say I saw Nolan Ryan pitch, live, huge thrill. I think he also retired the next year. So like I just last possible chance to see him. So that was awesome.
What was your first car?
I love that you ask everybody this, and I know you're a car guy, and I know a few people have had some pretty cool answers. My answer is like kind of in the middle, I guess. It was an 86 Jetta, and it was the car that I learned how to, drive stick on, because that's always what my dad, kind of always had manual transmission cars. Yeah. And I kind of thought it had a little bit of cred because people used to mention Jettas in hip hop songs in the 80s. There was a Sweet Tea song that I always loved where she mentioned cruising in the 86 Jetta. And in an old MC Light video, I think for Paper Thin, they all kind of roll up in Jettas that looked like 86s to me as well. And in sort of like my first years, when I really kind of got into the Halifax hip hop scene, and I had like, my boys that I trooped around with all the time, I was the only one with a car. And so like the 86 Jetta was like, the hip hop ride. We just cruise around town, listening to tapes and stuff. And, those cars were like fairly reliable. I know you always ask that question. Although the second car I had was also a Jetta, and it was a diesel, and it gave me nothing but problems, and it was always breaking down. And at one point, this is one of the more shameful things I could say about myself. The last time it broke down, I said, "Fuck this," and I abandoned it on the side of the road. I just left it there and walked away. Still sitting there for all I know.
I think we've had another guest. I can't remember who it was. Their car broke down and they just left it there.
Terrible. That's like the worst kind of littering you could do.
That's a car. I always wanted a Jetta.
Me too, actually.
Pretty cool car.
Or a Rabbit. They kind of had the same look, didn't they? Yep. The Jetta was a little bit longer. And
the Rabbit was when I was in high school, that was a popular car, but it was mostly for the quote unquote chicks. I don't know if that's a term I'm supposed to be using anymore. The chicks liked the Rabbit.
Right. Huh.
Yeah, I think they all, and because the Rabbit had a convertible. Did the Jettas ever do a convertible, a soft top?
Not that I could think
I remember
of.
The Rabbit had the soft
Rabbit
top
for sure.
Though, so What was your first paying job?
So when I was growing up, my dad ran a gas station, and so I got work there, just doing anything all the time, from pumping gas to just picking up garbage around the gas station. So there was almost always work there. And, he would pay me like a few bucks or whatever. But also, same time, same age, I was like the go-to guy in the neighborhood for like mowing everyone's lawn.
Oh, the lawn mowing job.
Yeah. So all the neighbors, they got...
What were you charging back then?
Oh, that's a good question. It feels like, it was long enough ago that it feels like in my memory that it was probably $20 or something like that.
Wow, that seems like, I remember when I did some lawns with a friend and we were doing $5 a lawn.
Well, you know what? $20 is, maybe I'm being generous with myself. It probably was more like $5. And something that embarrasses me to this day is that, I've always been kind of a meticulous dude, but the guy who lived right across the road from us growing up, he asked me to do his, and I half-assed it one day, and he got really upset. He got home from work. He basically marched right over to our house. He's like, "What is this shit? Get over here and clean this shit up." Like, this is terrible. And I'm like, God damn it, you're right. And I looked, I'm like, what was I thinking? I just like left patches all over the place. And when you're a kid, like, you're just so awkward socially, you know, you don't know what to say. Like, to this day, I almost wish I could find this man, David Bullen, and apologize. Like, fuck, man, I did a terrible job on your lawn that day, and I'm really sorry.
Hey, when you were doing those lawns, were you doing edges and all, or just straight mowing? Just mowing?
No, I was doing edges. I mean, it wasn't like the most deluxe, you know, job on the earth, but yeah, it was the mow, and then you get out like the weed whacker, you called it at the time, and doing all that. And I would, you know, I prided myself on doing a good job, and I always loved it. And I still love that kind of work, because it's like your level of concentration only goes, you know, kind of so high to where you can think while you're doing it. It's almost meditative. So like I would get a lot of rhymes written in my head. Yeah. I mean, I'd basically come up with entire songs while mowing a lawn. And like to this day, it would be something like washing dishes or whatever is a similar kind of work, where I could do a load of dishes and maybe come up with a verse.
Yeah.
In the time it takes.
We don't get many of those moments. Yeah, that's why I think, right, Adrienne, that's why Adrienne mows all our lawns.
Oh, yeah?
I always wanted to mow the lawn. It was what I really wanted to do.
She had brothers.
Right.
Well, that, and then the one I did finally got it mowed one time, and I put a big A in it.
Nice.
And then I turned that into a star. And then I was really never allowed to mow after that.
You know what was the worst? I don't know if you ever have, well, I mean, I guess you didn't get to mow too many, but if you ever went over a snake.
Oh, yeah.
That was the one hazard of the job I did not like, because it was just terrible. And you could hear it, like it would get caught up in the blades.
Oh, no.
Hear it whacking around in there.
What was the first movie that really scared you?
So real quick, like I said, my dad ran a gas station. And then at a certain point in the early 80s, he rented out a bit of space in the gas station to this guy named Bub Sarson, who opened a video store. And as part of the deal with him having like the operation in our place of business, I could take whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And for me, at that time, at that age, it was all about horror movies. And he got tons and tons and tons of them. Big ones and lots of like small, shitty indie ones or whatever. So I saw them all. And I think I eventually, you know, worked up a numbness to it. It was me and my cousin Bert. We couldn't get enough. But one that I do remember, weirdly enough, looking back on it, that freaked me out at the time when I was a kid, was The Evil Dead.
Oh, weird. Well, yeah. I mean, with all where you probably lived, there was probably very like close to home.
Exactly, because I was out in the woods. I of course I've rewatched it many times since, and I look back, it's like, oh my God, this is so hammy. Why was I so scared? But, you know, pretty like legit. And a lot of times like walking home at night. And like I said, I was a country guy, like out in the woods, and it would be really dark. And to get to my house, I'd walk through like long stretches where it's just the woods on either side. You know, and it's like, you get a little freaked out. You'd hear some noise coming out of the woods, and I'd just start hightailing it, running as fast as I could. And I mean, I know this answer's come up a bunch for you too, but The Exorcist as well. Yeah. When I was a kid, and I probably saw it younger than I should have, but there's a lot about that movie that haunts me to this day.
Yeah, I know I bring it up every time someone brings up Exorcist, but were you religious growing up? Because I often feel like it hits harder with people who grew up in religion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was raised into like a Catholic household. So yes, but not too strict. But there were phases where like the family would go in and out of like going to church. So there were times, and I've said this many times, even just a little bit of Catholicism will mess you up for life, you know, kind of thing. And so not that I was ever a devout or, you know, even really very religious person at all. I know that it affected me. Yeah. And so there's things even to this day about going into churches and stuff like that I feel it's like, fuck, why does this make me feel so weird? Like, why did this leave such a thing with me? And so for sure, with the religious, obvious, like overtones of that
got a stronghold.
Like, yeah, man, it's like, it's too much. It's so heavy. You know, sometimes if I have nothing else to say about an artist, because my radio show is a music show, so I have to talk about artists all the time. And sometimes failing all else, I'll say, okay, let me give you 3 fun facts real quick about so-and-so. And this one stands out in my memory, but apparently Rihanna, when she was a kid, attended an exorcism.
Ew.
Isn't that something? Can you imagine?
No.
It's not. I don't think it's a very well-known story, but legit, she actually witnessed an exorcism when she was a kid.
Those are the scariest. Well, I was gonna say the scariest things of those to me is how much people are believing it. That scares me more than the actual what
possession or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Who's the first person you idolized?
Easy, man. Given the times, Evel Knievel.
Oh my God, yeah, that's good.
When I was a kid in the 70s, every boy wanted to be a stuntman. And Evel Knievel was like the most, one of the most famous people in the world, period. Certainly the most famous stuntman. And especially growing up in the country where all you had to do was basically rip around on your bike. And we just built ramps all the time, just jumping shit all over the place. So we were just playing out our Evel Knievel fantasies on the
So
day.
great.
Easy.
Remember
one.
Super Dave? Was Super Dave?
Of course.
How did that become? Was that an Evel Knievel thing?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, basically it was like a riff on Evel Knievel, and that whole thing with Super Dave started on a Canadian comedy
did
TV
it?
show called Bizarre, and it was just like a sketch that would appear on the show Bizarre. So I was into Super Dave from day one. This would go back to like early 80s when he first developed that character. It was a Canadian TV thing, weirdly enough.
that's so sad. People won't know what Super Dave is.
Yeah. And then around the same time, there was a TV show called That's Incredible. And it would just like, it was an American show. And it would just, each show would have, maybe 4 different segments of just incredible things. And often they would have these segments with this stuntman named Dar Robinson. And he would just do some crazy thing. And this was in a time when like stuntmen were really idolized. And of course,
yeah, we had Fall Guy.
Yeah.
Stuntmen were.
They were kind of like the thing in a way that a lot of people now probably couldn't really appreciate. But Evel Knievel was clearly the king of them all. He was so flamboyant. He had the outfits and like the ego and fur coats and stuff like that. So, yeah, man.
That's a great answer.
And everyone I knew was the same thing. All the kids I hung out with when I was a kid, they would all say the same thing.
Did you ever reach Evel Knievel kind of levels of
Kind of, because when I was a kid, probably like the most like fearless of all my other friends around, but also like kind of athletic. I think just because I was playing so many sports and I had pretty good control over my body that I could do kind of crazy things and not get hurt. Because sometimes we would purposely just launch ourselves into danger. So like, yeah, sometimes you would want to jump over 10 of your friends lying on their back. But another time it would be just like launch into the woods, just into a tree. Just like into the trees and just see what happens. Just like into the unknown. And sometimes someone would set something up like, I dare you to jump off that. And I would be the only one who would do it. And but funny enough, like among my friends in this time, there was sort of like some glory, like you would get some cred if you did get hurt, and you got hurt, you go off to the hospital, you come back the next day with a cast and everyone's like, oh yeah, man, and everyone's signing the cast. But I never got hurt. I never broke a bone or anything. So even though I was doing like these spectacular jumps and stuff, and granted, people would be pretty excited, just, see me go like 20 feet in the air over, whatever. I never got hurt. So it was the guys that, would just really send it and pay the price who seemed to get more glory.
Who's the first person you call or text when you get great news?
So, yeah, man, I feel like it kind of depends on what the news is, because I have people who, have very specific roles in my life. I have my baseball friends and I have my music friends and I have my work friends and whatever. And so, if it if the news fell into any of those categories, it'd be like, I got to tell Joe about this, man. Joe's going to love this. It's always the person who would love hearing that news the most. And that could be a different person, all the time.
When you do that, I guess the reason I asked that question, do you get a joy out of hearing your friends or someone experience something with you?
I do. And as a matter of fact, it's so funny that this question comes up now because I shared a moment like that with a friend just last night. A friend of mine, it was the other way around in this particular case. A friend of mine said, oh my God, I got the most incredible thing to tell you. You're the only person who's going to really appreciate this. And I got to tell you. And we ended up talking on the phone, for 45 minutes about this particular piece of news. And this was a baseball related thing in this particular case. I do have a partner who's like, the greatest person I've ever known in my life. So I guess if it's a real personal, just sort of thing that doesn't fall into those categories, of course, if she's not here, she'd certainly be the first one I would call. She works in a hospital, so I can't get her on the phone, at any given time. But she's, of course, going to be the first person I would want to talk to about anything.
It's good to have someone to share good and bad things with.
Yeah, and I've been there in my own life where I've had times where I haven't had that, and that's tough when in particular when you're going through something rough. But even when you're going through something good, you want to be able to talk with somebody about it and to share it. And it's a real...
I'm very curious I'm so fascinated about people who live alone, like always alone, never had anybody. I'm very curious about towards the end of their life, if they ever wish, because I've had Adrienne and I've been married for 23 years, but I've always had someone to share with, and I don't know that I feel like I wouldn't try to experience new things if I couldn't share it with somebody. I don't know why. I'm just curious about people.
So did you guys get married when you were 2 years old?
Yeah.
All right now.
First movie cry.
I remember fairly clearly being a little kid and going out to see Bambi in a movie theater. I don't remember crying, but I can't imagine that I didn't, because this was so long ago. You know what I mean? How's a little kid going to watch that and not cry? So I'm assuming that it would have been Bambi, but the one I remember clearly is the one that I've heard so many people say, which is E.T.
Yep.
But a movie cry that really stays with me, like stands out in my memory and took me by surprise and just left me so vulnerable, is another one that I've heard come up on this show a few times, is Glory. Wrecked me.
God. Yeah.
Wrecked me.
Which specific scenes are...
Well,
when they're whipping Denzel, man, I fucking, even to this day when I watch it, and
look where he just he turns and he has that defiant look on his face and the tear comes down his eye. And I remember watching that with my first girlfriend, Francine, who's black. And so, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I would have been affected by it just as much as if I was watching it with someone else or if I was watching it alone, but I was with her. And I was so caught off guard by, the moment and my reaction, and I'm there with her, and we're consoling each other, and it just took on this whole other, gravity, and have to say, holy fuck, what's happening right now, And I mean, it just like I said, it kind of stayed with me to this day, really.
Yeah.
Probably the most traumatic cry in a movie I've ever had, and I will not, I think I could probably, and I would like to watch Glory again, but a movie I could not watch again because it was too tough was Dancer in the Dark.
Oh, that's the Bjork movie, right?
Have you guys seen that?
I think I saw back when I was watching lots of film. But I don't know if
was it about her stalker or what?
No. It's
I didn't even know that she had a film.
Yeah, and Lars von Trier was the director, and he demands a lot of his actors, and the stories go that it was a pretty brutal experience for her, but she plays this woman who's going blind, and I mean, I don't want to spoil the scene that wrecked me, but shit, man, approach with caution, and if you ever really need a cry, but it's not It's not going to be. It's not the most cathartic cry. It's just brutal, like just having your soul pulled out of you.
Yeah. What was your first pseudonym?
Well, I mean, I've had the nickname Buck since I was born. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if that counts, I don't know if you're referring specifically to like pseudonyms, music and like with releases and stuff like that. But Buck has always been my nickname. But I'll admit to you another thing that I've never said out loud either is that, oh my God, this is so ridiculous. So I grew up in the country. Like I said, we didn't have a high school because we were too small of a town, but we did have like an elementary, like grade school. And we had a little teeny tiny library. And I'd be in there all the time just looking for any kind of interesting book. And looking back, there were a couple of books that were really cool that they were in there, and some books that, kind of influenced me in a lot of ways. But one thing that was so bizarre that they had in this library in a teeny tiny little school in this, small town, just middle of nowhere place, was a jive dictionary. Okay? So a jive talk dictionary. And it wasn't the first rap that I ever wrote, because I wrote a bunch of like verses just like about like the girls in my class and stuff when I was like a little kid. But the first time where I thought, I'm going to sit down, I'm really going to craft a song here, I basically used the Jive dictionary as like source material, and I wanted to incorporate as much Jive talk. So ridiculous. It's reminding me of that scene in Airplane, in the movie Airplane, where the old lady goes, "Excuse me, I speak Jive." I mean, that was me basically. And I don't think I ever recorded this. It was epic long, like probably like 120 bar, just one verse song. And I kind of came up with like a rapper name for myself, and I signed it at the bottom. And it was Shy Ill. And I also thought that it would be clever of me to spell it Shyyyll. Ooh, that looks cool. And that was because I was a shy kid, but I also had like the weird sense of humor. So I was always illin'. So I was Shy Ill. Oh my God, it's just brutal.
It's great.
So I mean, the real answer to that question, especially like in a hip hop context, is Shy Ill. I have never told anyone that before, and it's probably going to come back to haunt me. But
and even greater with the spelling, Shyll.
Oh man! And I wish I could remember like some of the phrases. And I'll tell you, guarantee you, I still have that verse in my basement here. I have everything I've ever written.
Have you always been good at just holding on to for lack of a better term, keepsakes? But
yeah, but
Shyll.
There's one line I remember. I'm not going to like rap it to you, but basically I wanted to say, my girlfriend looks good and yours doesn't. Mm-hmm. Basically. All right. But using jive talk, it was, I have a frail eel, you have a hard leg. Oh all right. So frail eel was a beautiful woman. Hard leg was a ugly lady.
So when you're doing this, you write out what you want to say, and then you, much like when you're trying to find definition, you scroll through the Jive dictionary to just insert.
Yeah, I guess, or maybe I read the entire dictionary and wrote down, oh, that's good, I'll use that for sure. Frail eel, I gotta use that. Oh man.
All right, the last of your first. Who was your first hero athlete?
I mentioned him earlier, Gary Carter. I think Montreal Expos, growing up on the east coast of Canada, everyone where I grew up was either a Red Sox fan or an Expos fan, because Boston is really close to where I grew up. And so for me, I was an Expos guy. And, I probably became like a hardcore baseball fan. I seem to remember I was 8 when I started playing. And Gary Carter, I think, was Rookie of the Year in '77. So he kind of was a star right out of the gate and was the Expos star player for basically all the years that he played in Montreal, and really seemed to relish the role. He was on TV a lot doing commercials and, was always there to do an interview and was great with kids and stuff. And so, I mean, so many kids of my generation really fell in love with him. I don't even think he needed to be in Canada because he just had this big personality. He was great too. He was a great player. And then I sent off a fan letter, and he sent back an autographed postcard at one point when I was a kid. And then in '84, I got to meet him, and it was unbelievable. He was so great.
Oh, that's good.
It was the best. It was the best thing ever.
It's bad when you meet them and they're shit.
Yeah, and you know what? The funny thing was, with the circumstances under which I met him, I got to meet the whole team. And a few of those guys were the same thing, really great. Tim Raines was on the Expos at the time. He was great with kids. He just hammed it up for me. Andre Dawson, I remember, was really cool. A few of those guys. Pete Rose was there. He was very briefly, just for a few months. He played for the Expos, and it happened to be when I got to meet the team, and he just walked by and didn't
of course,
look at me kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah. I mean, that part sucks. All right, let's get into your worst. What's the worst sound?
There's a lot of different ways you could slice worst, right? But I'm gonna go with, sticking to the baseball theme, a baseball at high velocity hitting someone's face.
Oh, I was afraid you were going to say that.
Is awful. It is a terrible sound. It's terrible coming through the TV, just watching that on TV. But I've also, been there in person and up close when it's happened. It's this combination of like kind of crack from the bones, but also splash of just like the flesh and stuff. And it's terrible. It's a really terrible sound. Just the sound itself is quite terrible.
Yeah.
But of course, you know what it means as well. And so the implication of the sound is so terrible, and knowing like, okay, that person just got hurt very badly.
Very bad.
And
but
so
they wear helmets.
Well, they used to not.
Oh.
Yeah, and now in particular, and this is a product of the last few years, it's much more common to have kind of more of your face covered. But that's the hitter. Another thing that is somewhat common is the hitter hits a line drive straight back at the pitcher, and that will be going faster in a lot of cases than the pitch itself. So you might have that going like 115 miles an hour. The guy is only standing about 80, 85 feet away. There is no time to react. And there's
you're less prepared for that than you are when a pitcher's throwing a ball at you.
Yeah, in that case, at least you can kind of tighten up and wince and brace yourself for the blow. But if it's coming the other direction, probably not even. And it is awful.
Yeah,
awful when that happens. And from that regard, I would say that, football, obviously you're putting your body on the line every day, but the danger level, the potential for like serious danger in baseball is really high. There was this guy, big star player a number of years ago, my partner's favorite player, actually. She loves this guy, Giancarlo Stanton. And he got hit in the face, and it was gruesome. And very shortly after that, everyone started wearing these, they call them C-flaps to cover your face. And I think it just horrified so many people that was like, we got to do something here because no one wants to go through that. And I've seen it save some people. So I always wear one myself. I don't want to get hit like that.
Yeah, no way. Yeah. What's the worst word?
So quickly, I want to say, Adrienne, some episodes back, and I forget who it was, you had a little discussion about your distaste for buzzwords. When people get sort of jargony about a word that just people use a lot now. And there's a few like that I am really bothered by, like journey, like, well, this is my journey into weight loss or whatever, everything is a journey now. Or like storytelling, like I'm a storyteller, but it's like a chef saying it. So fuck off, you're not a storyteller, you're making ham or
spaghetti.
Yeah. So that really gets under my skin too, but just in terms of just the word itself and like the phonetics of it. And it's funny because it's such a relevant word to me and my experiences. Rural.
Oh, I hate that word. I don't even know how to say it.
As opposed to urban, rural.
Yeah, and, I would say the country.
Yeah, exactly. I avoid it at all costs. And I think it's a little bit of like I'm not the only one, because I remember, I don't know if either of you guys watched 30 Rock,
Yeah, I loved it.
and I don't know who wrote this episode, but there was this one, joke kind of thing where Jenna had a role in a movie called The Rural Juror. And surely they were thinking the same thing, like these words with too many R's in them are so gross, and I'm saddled with first and last name that both have multiple R's in them.
I think it's the you that messes that one up.
You think so? For me, it's always been too many R's. Like, it's just,
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a shit, because it is a shitty word.
If it was Rual, that would be fine.
Sure, right. Yeah. Right, but no.
Yeah, it's hard.
A rural with cheese. So who's the worst teacher you ever had?
That is not easy, because I've had some bad ones. I've had a good handful. One stands out from grade school, one stands out from high school, one stands out from university.
Oh.
In terms of the worst, I'll say this, because this is a big gripe of mine. I had a high school chemistry teacher whose name eludes me, and I probably blocked it out because I disliked this person so much. He was just kind of out to lunch and in his own little world, and it's almost like he didn't even know we were in the room, kind of thing, and he was kind of esoteric guy. And this for me was a very important course, because I think I knew that I was going to probably go into the sciences after high school, like in university. And so it was very important for me that my grades in chemistry and biology and math and stuff, like, they had to be good grades if I was going to get into the programs I wanted to get into. I did not learn a thing from this man. And that's not why I'm in school.
Right.
So you got to be better than that. And I've told kids before, the kids of friends or maybe my sister's kids or whatever, don't let that happen. Because I never did it. I didn't know. Like, you're so dumb when you're a kid, and socially you just don't know what to do. To say, wait a minute, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I wish so bad I did. And so I've told young people, like, don't let that happen to you in school for any course. Don't let a teacher do a terrible job, because you're there to learn.
Yeah.
And the worst combination is if they're out to lunch like that, they're a terrible teacher, but it's an easy grade, and they're just like, oh, fuck it, I'll just give everyone an A. But this was not that. Like, the whole class would fail because he was so bad. It's like, this can't happen. And especially, post-secondary school, university, you're paying for someone to blow it like that. That's not right. This is my money, and it's a lot of money. And I took out a loan for this, and you're doing this bad a job. It's just, it's inexcusable. And this guy, he would just make up words for things, and he had his own weird, just like little slang, like his way of explaining things, just using like practically his own language and stuff. And he was just, he maddening.
He's failing everybody. He never once thought, well, maybe I'm a shitty teacher.
Yeah. And like how the school wouldn't even recognize it. Terrible.
Yeah.
What's the worst candy?
So generally speaking, it's sort of a mind-blowing thing, and it doesn't exist much anymore, but candy cigarettes is such a weird idea.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a Canadian thing, but in particular, I grew up with Popeye cigarettes. Is that a Canadian thing? Do you ever remember seeing Popeye cigarettes?
No.
We didn't see it out west.
I remember fake cigarettes, but never Popeye cigarettes, no.
Because a lot of fake cigarettes was just this little stick of chocolate wrapped in paper or something like that, or maybe even gum.
Not us.
We didn't have those. Ours was just a sugar stick.
Yeah. Okay, so Popeye cigarettes, same thing, not wrapped in paper or anything like that. It was just this sugar stick, and it was this gross sugar. I don't even know what you would call it, because I've never seen it pop up in any other form, but the taste of it was also quite bad. So that I never liked, and I liked all candy as a kid. And then also, of course, the concept, like, here, kids.
I know. Me and my friends used to buy them and pretend like we smoked them.
I mean, and there was that.
Yeah.
Like, we thought.
Well, and if you blew in it, little.
I remember those
sugar
too.
would come out,
Little
like,
puff. Yeah. It's such a bonkers concept.
So cool.
That reminds me. So with your dad running the gas station, did you get a lot of candies like for free? Were you able to just? Oh fuck.
Yeah, like my mom and I, we would call him down at the gas station at the end of the day before he came home. He would call us to ask if we needed him to bring home anything. Do we need milk or whatever? And I remember as a little kid, I would always say, I need hugs and kisses and treats in a bag.
Oh.
And he would bring the little paper bag with like, the kind of penny candies,
Yeah.
fill it up with a mix of stuff. So
That's cool.
man, I was getting the free candy all the time.
Yeah, Adrian often gripes when we go to the gas stations now that every candy is fucking this big.
Not the
They
same.
don't penny candy, and they're $5. Like,
Yeah, man, it doesn't exist anymore. You can't get like, you used to be able to pay 2 cents for something, or at least a nickel or whatever, but that's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, it's a shame.
worst movie about baseball.
So for me, what really drives me nuts is if you can tell the actors can't play.
Oh, baseball.
Yeah, and they look really bad, and we're supposed to believe that they're like professional baseball players. To me, anything like that would really bother me. And there was a few actors who were actually quite good baseball players, and so you could really suspend your disbelief or whatever. But one that stands out in my mind because I think it had that kind of fake players, but also it just for my money was Major League 2. I didn't really like either of the major leagues. The first one was bad enough, and then the sequel, which was subpar to the original, was like, that's about as bad as it would get for me right there. But it just wasn't my particular brand of humor either. Just like the gags and stuff didn't really land for me. So
I did like Major League. That's Charlie Sheen, right?
Charlie Sheen, and I get the appeal. And the one thing I did like about that is he could clearly really play. He's a really good baseball player.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He can really throw. He really hit too.
What's the worst job you ever had?
Oh man. I know. Get a load of this. No one's gonna top this. So at some point in the 90s, a compilation album came out. In fact, I think there were a few of them that were these Beavis and Butthead compilation albums. So that featured, music that would have appeared on the show or whatever, right? Because they were always rocking out to, whatever. And so I don't even know how I got this job, but when one of those albums came out to promote it, I ended up getting hired with my friend Dusty to wear these Beavis and Butthead masks and walk around a mall and hand out flyers promoting the album to like kids in the mall. And the amount of abuse that we took that day and just getting kicked by kids, and I mean, it was just relentless, like the most awful thing you could subject someone to. I was Butthead, for the record. I hung on to the mask for many years. I don't have it anymore, but it's like a full, Butthead head.
Oh man,
I had to
and
wear
at the mall too.
At the mall.
Did you get into
Brutal.
it though?
Were you making the sounds too?
I think probably for like the first 15 minutes, and then it just wore off quick. And like we couldn't get out of there until we handed out all these flyers, and you're so tempted to just like find a garbage can and dump them all in there and get the hell out of there, which is probably what we did at least after some hours, but mostly we're like, because I think they had some label rep kind of lurking around and keeping an eye on things.
Or at least they threatened that.
Worst exercise.
I mean, for me, I guess I'll just say that it's not terrible inherently in and of itself, but I used to run, like, jog. I'd get out and run every day, and then it eventually just took such a toll on my knees that I can't do it anymore, to the point where I thought, well, how can anyone do this? Isn't this brutal on everybody's knees? And I know they make shoes better and better now all the time, but that is a lot of pounding, to go on your knees. And I mean, there are people who do it every day, and I just think to myself, like, I get it. Your cardio is probably great, but when you're 50, you're not going to be able to walk unless you're being really careful about how you do this. So any kind of exercise that's actually doing damage to your body, what's the point really in the long run?
Worst place to go on a first date.
It seems almost counterintuitive in a way, because in some ways it seems like an ideal place, but I'm going to say going out to a movie. Not the same as watching one at home, but if it's a first date and you're wanting to get to know this person, you just sit in silence, you're not facing each other, you're looking away. I think I did that a few times when I was younger, and then it's the end of the night, like the movie's over, it's like, okay. I mean, we didn't say more than 20 words to each other all night, but good night, I guess. It's like, wait a minute, that was a mistake.
Maybe we should try that again another day.
That's a good answer. Oh yeah, worst condiment.
I guess I'm gonna have to say relish. I don't think I've ever put relish on a hot dog ever. I will also say, even if I can appreciate it on a certain level, but like people really abuse ranch.
Yeah, they do.
Like, people will say like, oh yeah, cauliflower, I'll eat cauliflower, but they're like drenched in ranch, like it's just a delivery vehicle for the ranch. It's like, nah, it's an abusive relationship that we have en masse. That's a real problem, I think. So I got a little hate for ranch going.
Worst thing to get from concessions at a baseball game.
All right, this will be controversial. People might want to fight me for this, but ever since the Expos went away, my allegiances switched to the Dodgers. And I was already a bit of a Dodgers fan, but I'm like a pretty hardcore Dodgers guy now. And what people talk about all the time about the experience of going out to Dodger Stadium, oh, you got to get a Dodger dog. And I would listen to the games on the radio because I worshiped the great Vin Scully, big influence on me, especially as a broadcaster, kind of the greatest of all time. And he would do the promos for like whatever it is, Farmer John's or whatever, like the official, hot dog of, the Dodgers and blah, blah, blah. So the first time I went to Dodger Stadium, part of the plan from that morning was gotta get a Dodger dog when we get there. And maybe it was just built up way too much, but it was like, what the fuck? This sucks. This is like the worst hot dog I've ever had in my life. I mean, it was all kind of like shriveled and skinny and flavorless, and it's just like this way. But I mean, really, the issue was like there was way too much hype, and it was impossible for it to live up to it. Sure. So I don't think I've ever been more disappointed by something that I got as a concession than a Dodger dog, which is probably the most famous concession item in all of baseball.
People are gonna hate. Do you like hot dogs in general?
I mean, it's kind of part of going out to the ball game, just get a hot dog. It's just, it makes you feel like, it's like it's part of the whole ritual. And so more often than not, I will get a hot dog at the game. Well, this summer could be a different story depending on where I'm at with my cholesterol. No, that's going to be one of the worst things you could eat.
No nachos either.
Terrible. But yeah, historically, I'd always get one.
Do you have a favorite professional wrestler?
So I was pretty big into it when I was a kid, and this is, going back. I'm older than, everybody. But my first favorite guy, I think, was Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful.
Oh.
And he was one of those, like, real real athletic wrestlers, and just like, super ripped, like, great, like, just like physique, like super well, like put together. But he was no nonsense. He didn't really have any kind of gimmick. He was just a really, really good wrestler. And I think won a bunch of belts. Like, funny enough, given WWF at the time, for a guy that didn't have any kind of gimmick, he was one of the top guys. But I would probably say all time, and as you probably know, if you've heard like my last bunch of albums, I give a lot of shout outs to like different wrestlers on my records. Because I've always liked those real kind of spectacular athletic guys. Rey Mysterio.
Oh, yeah. Mysterio was awesome.
He's just like spectacular, you know what I mean? Like, holy shit. Just like moves that, you never saw anyone do, and that no one was doing.
No one did. Well, now, I mean, it seems like everyone's doing, but yeah. Mysterio. Favorite odd person?
Alluded to earlier, I'll say Crispin Glover. Star of the Beaver trilogy, but they don't come much odder than Crispin Glover. He's so great in everything that he's ever been in. I don't know if you guys know River's Edge, but that's such a good movie. It's Keanu Reeves' like first movie, and I think he's supposed to be the star, but Crispin Glover steals the show because he's just, he just eats up the screen in every scene that he's in. And then like his small role in Wild at Heart, the David Lynch movie, is so good and so memorable. But I don't know if you know much about his sort of own career that's sort of out of the spotlight, but like he's a filmmaker himself, but he doesn't allow his films to be distributed. So the only way you can see it is if he shows you.
That's
And so people
great.
will hire him to come to their city and he'll do a thing and sell tickets. And it's the only way you can see his movies. And they're some of the most challenging things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And there's just like a level of thought and intellect and philosophy and stuff that's gone into it that you just don't get anywhere else. And then his books as well. Has these books that are unlike anything else I've ever seen. I'm pretty sure I have them all. I'm really proud to have them in my collection. They're like just the weirdest things you've ever seen. I, you know, when he does the films, he'll speak first and then show the film. And I got to go to one of those here in Toronto. And it was awesome just to hear him speak and to share his ideas and stuff like that. Super fascinating guy. And someone as odd a duck as he is, someone I've found to be a real inspiration. And what's super fascinating about him is that he has a world in like sort of the big time world. You know, he's in movies like Back to the Future and Charlie's Angels and stuff, but then he has this underground thing that a lot of people don't know about, where he's doing some of the most subversive stuff you've ever seen or heard.
Favorite Super Bowl game of all time?
All right, so this might ruffle a few feathers as well. But you know, being a guy who's played sports his whole life myself, I have this deep appreciation for when you see an athlete go to another level that even the greats only maybe go to a couple times in their career, where they're so deeply in the zone. It's almost like beyond the zone. And where they can single-handedly say, I'm just going to take over here and put this whole operation on my back. And so I say this because I can appreciate it on that level, but someone I was never really a big fan of personally, because it's almost like rooting for Darth Vader or something like that, is Tom Brady, right? He's just like too...
He's perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that Super Bowl, I forget what number it was, in 2017, where the Patriots had that gigantic comeback, and then the game was finally, settled in overtime, which I think was the first time that ever happened.
Yes.
And they came back by, I forget how much, but like...
We're down by 35 points or something like that.
Craziness. But I have to step back and say, holy shit, like what a performance by Tom Brady. You got to give it to the guy. It was probably the greatest performance by a quarterback I've ever seen.
Do you have a favorite month?
I would say April. And the reason why is because, first of all, baseball season usually starts in April. But I'm a summer guy. And even though I'm here in Canada and, I know I hear it all the time, like, oh, you must love it up there and you're used to it. But like the winter, that is. But I don't like winter at all. And I really look forward to the summer. And in April, it's not summer yet, and you still might have to endure some terrible weather in April, but all the promise is just ahead of you. Mm-hmm. And it's the anticipation and the promise of it all that I love. And I feel my mood really start to change in April, and you start to see maybe the first flowers coming out and the buds appearing on trees and stuff like that. And I just love that feeling of that time of year.
April's a good month. Favorite Tarantino movie?
That is not easy.
No.
It is not easy, but I'm going to not overthink it, because it's easy to be a snob in these type of situations. And I'm just going to say Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw Reservoir Dogs and loved it. This is before, because Pulp Fiction made him. Mm-hmm. So it was sort of like the fringier, more hardcore people in my circle of friends who knew Reservoir Dogs. Not everyone knew it at the time, for me, where I was. But enough, and it certainly took on, cult status. And so anticipation for Pulp Fiction was so high, and I can remember it really clearly. And somehow, some way, I got passes to either a screening before it opened or for opening night of it. And I can just remember like the hype and the excitement in that room, and then like the opening credits and the music and just like the look and the feel of the whole thing. And I love Jackie Brown, and I love Django, but nothing for me matches the feeling of what it felt like to see Pulp Fiction right when it opened in the theater at that time. I saw Kill Bill 1 in the theater right when it came out in London, and I remember the crowd was just wild. Everyone was so excited. That was pretty good too. But Pulp Fiction, man, I mean,
it changed cinema forever.
So much. Yeah.
It changed the history of making films forever.
It really did. And so, like I said, I'm just going to not overthink it, and I'm going to say Pulp Fiction. I still watch it all the time, but I'm a pretty deep movie guy. And like I said, there still is this sort of underground video place here in Toronto. It used to be called Suspect Video. It's called Eyesore now, but it used to be called Suspect. And I would go in, I'd talk to the guy there, and he'd turn me on to some really deep stuff or whatever. And at one point, he turned me on to this movie called Lost Empire. And it was sort of like this underground kind of culty filmmaker guy. He's an LA guy who he had one shot in his career where he was given kind of a budget, because all of his other movies were shoestring budget. But he worked out some sort of deal for himself, and he got a budget. And so he told himself, well, this might be my only chance, so I'm going to make every movie I ever wanted to make in this movie. And so Lost Empire is a ninja movie. It's a women in prison movie. It's an outer space aliens movie. Like, it's every weird sort of cult genre in one.
Awesome.
And so when I saw this, I was lucky enough to get set up with this copy at Suspect Video. I thought, I need to own this. I got to track it down. And so the one trip I took to LA, I thought, there's probably only one city in the world where I have to maybe find a copy of this. It's going to be in LA. I'm going to devote this whole trip. If it takes days, if I have to go to every shop in LA, I'm going to find this movie. And one of the first places I went into was the big Amoeba on Sunset, and I went upstairs where the movies are, and I looked around a bit. I didn't find it. I thought, well, this could be in any category up here because it's every genre. So eventually I said, forget this. I'm just going to go to the counter and ask. And so I go up to the guy and I said, okay, I'm hoping you can help me out here. I'm looking for this movie called Lost Empire. I was like, I can't say I've heard of it. And it's pretty rare to stump these guys these hardcore guys working at Amoeba. And he goes and he looks in the computer. He's like, fuck, man, I got nothing for you. I'm sorry, I can't help you out. I say, all right, man, well, thanks for checking. I turn around to walk away, and Quentin Tarantino is standing right there.
Fuck me.
And I am so in the zone of I have to find this movie that before I had a chance to process, my only thought was, this is the biggest movie nerd on earth. And so I said, hey, man, you probably know the movie I'm looking for. I didn't even think to be like, oh, don't bother Quentin Tarantino, or say, oh my God, Quentin Tarantino, good to meet you. It was just like, yo, you probably know the movie I'm looking for. And he's like, oh, which one? And I said,
he probably loved that though.
He did. He loved it. We had a great chat for like a few minutes about, and of course he knew what I was talking about. He probably would have been the only other guy on earth who knew what I was talking about. And, kind of had a nice little bonding moment because he agreed, like, of course, that movie fucking rules.
Yeah. What about what era in his career was that?
Oh, man. What year would that have been? I want to say, it was, of fairly recent memory. I'm going to guess that happened in, like, let's say 2010, give or take.
But he was huge. I mean, he was Quentin.
Oh, gigantic. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I think he still keeps hard copies of movies. That's what he watches is not streamable.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, he's a purist.
That's why he's at the movie store.
But I asked him, it's like, well, what do you think? Like, you got any advice? Where do you think I can get a copy of that movie? He's like, good luck, man. Like, and eventually I did. I don't know how I did it. I managed to finally get a copy. But if you can remember that Lost Empire, they, funny enough, issued recently the soundtrack on vinyl. This is a fucking random thing. Who's even seen this movie to want this soundtrack? And of course, I bought it.
The soundtrack's awesome, or
it is good, and I actually sampled it for a beat that I made for Sage that has yet to see the light of day. But the woman who is the star of this movie was in like a bunch of sort of B movies. This is very much a B movie. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to check on eBay. I found just what I was looking for, an autographed 8x10 photo of this
Oh,
woman
cool.
who's like a B movie queen. Bought it on eBay for like a couple bucks, got it, and then I just slipped it into the sleeve
with the sleeve.
of that
Oh,
record,
cool.
so I keep it.
That's
together.
awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome.
But if you can ever find it or come across it, holy shit, it's the most mind-blowing thing ever.
Favorite Kurt Russell movie?
Kurt Russell. I'm going to kind of go in a weird direction on this one and say The Battered Bastards of Baseball, which is a documentary.
Oh.
And it's about his days playing professional baseball. I don't know if you knew about that. And it's great. Battered Bastards of Baseball, which I think is a Netflix thing. It sort of tells the whole story of this team, this kind of ragtag crazy team that he played on. It's so great. And I mean, he's like, really
Was he good? What did he play? What position?
I want to say he was like a third baseman or something like that, but like legit really good player.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
He's a good dude.
Yeah.
Wait, what about this? Aside from the one you grew up in, what's your favorite Canada province?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I don't know if I've ever thought about that. So I'm going to say one that neighbors Nova Scotia, where I'm from, Prince Edward Island. It's an island, and it's kind of like a mysterious place, and it seems like its own world that has a different sense of time there or something. Just everything is just a little off and a little different.
It's a glitch kind of a place.
Yeah, exactly. Like, to get there, you have to go over this long bridge, and it seems like it's always foggy. So you have to go through this mist, and then you emerge from the mist on the other side in this other world. It's like, what is going on here? Why does nothing look familiar here? It's like they're just doing their own thing there. I'm
fascinated now.
And I have gripes with practically every other province. So just sort of by default, Prince Edward Island.
Do you have a favorite breakfast?
You kind of can't beat just like eggs, sausage, toast, hash brown, kind of thing. Super basic, classic, especially when it's done really well, will like just put me right over the moon, with huevos rancheros probably being a close second.
Now you got to get that without the yolks.
No, I think eggs are back on the okay list.
Oh, are they?
Okay.
I don't know. Don't write your health on what I say.
Yeah, no kidding. Favorite album now?
You know what album I've been loving is the latest Aesop record, the Integrated Tech Solutions. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Holy shit, that record is great. And like, I know Aesop a little bit, but I think Ian just really kind of outdid himself on that record, really, showing up both as a producer and as a rapper. But I mean, the songs are just so well crafted. Yeah. And I had to write him just to say, hey man, look, I got to tell you, like, just your record kills.
Yeah, great answer for the album one, because I agree. It's definitely
so good.
Do artists like to be told, I think this is your best yet?
You know what I think they do, but what I try to do as a matter of principle with my friends, in particular, if they've sent something to me like, hey, specifically, I want you to hear this, maybe before it comes out or something like that, or just generally, even if that's not the case, I like to give people really detailed feedback. And I think everyone loves that, because they love to know you really listened and you really paid attention and you picked up on this thing that I was hoping someone would pick up on. And so often, in particular, when one of my friends puts out a record, I'll send them back an email this long.
Yeah, that's cool.
Giving them like the full thing. And I think everyone really seems to love and appreciate that.
That's a good move.
And I'm sure I started doing that because somebody maybe once, did that for me. I'm like, right. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like your one music video that has to do with the Beavers trilogy.
Exactly.
Yeah, here we go. Last two.
Okay.
Favorite late night snack?
I'm a cereal guy. I think I've heard you say the same thing, Tai. To me, it makes the most. Hey, what are you doing? She's taking pictures of me over here. Paparazzi.
What brand of cereal?
Now that's another thing that has changed recently with the cholesterol situation. I mean, I'm trying really hard to go no cholesterol or stuff that's known to lower it. And most cereals have, some cholesterol. So I've been going hardcore just on like granola lately. But my go-to favorite always has been Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I think I'd have to go with that as the best. Here's a weird thing that I think is only a Canada thing, but a few years ago they messed with the formula for Fruit Loops, and they kind of made it healthy because I think they created some regulations here where like you can't, do this, and maybe they banned some stuff or whatever. Yeah. And so it's great. It's not as bad for you as maybe
healthy Fruit Loops,
but it sucks.
Oh,
it sucks now. And it was like, that was maybe always my favorite. And now it's garbage now. It doesn't even look the same because they can't use the artificial colors in it anymore. So the colors are all just kind of dim and stuff.
Oh, shit. That looks like old.
Yeah.
Favorite character other than Max in The Road Warrior?
There's so many good characters in that movie. Good guys and bad guys. But that movie was on just a few nights ago, and so I'm watching it right over here with Sean, who you just met, and I found myself quoting every line from the gyro captain, the guy with like little rickety helicopter thing. He has some great lines, and in the end, he's kind of like the hero. Of the movie, right? Because they use Max at the end just to basically like be a decoy, but the gyro captain, he kind of bailed him out that time on the mission that didn't work out, and he kind of goes off with them in the end and stuff. Plus I just like really like that actor, and like, remember Max, he chains him like to the big log and he has to drag the log around, and Max kind of has the sawed-off shotgun that he's, kind of keeps pointed at him all the time. And then there's the point later on in the movie where Max kind of reveals that there were never any bullets in the gun. He's like, this whole time. Anyway, he's got so many great lines. So, but I always really liked the Humongous too. I was also fascinated with just like the big muscle guy with the mask. And often when I was like, performing, when I was touring constantly back in the day, sometimes I would channel the Humongous when I was on stage, because there's the part in the movie, with the boomerang that cuts off the guy's fingers, and they roll up with those two guys strapped to the front of that vehicle he's driving and stuff. Actually, it's not his vehicle, but he's right next to it or whatever. And they want the gasoline, right? And so the Humongous, he pulls out this little microphone and he addresses, the people who live in the compound, saying like, this is the deal we want to make with you. We'll give you 24 hours to think about it. We'll be back tomorrow. If you don't want the deal, it's on, kind of thing. And just like the whole way he does it, and his posture, and like, he's sort of like flexing, but like, pointing, and he has all these great gestures with his hands. And so often when I was performing, I'd be thinking on stage about the Humongous. It's like, that's cool, because you can't take your eyes off him in the movie when he's doing his thing, and he's just so animated, and his gestures are so interesting. And of course, I was always thinking like, I don't want to be boring anybody up here. How can I be as interesting as I can be when I'm performing? So I thought, the Humongous, he knew how to address a crowd. So he was
with a little bit of there was some threat behind it.
yeah. But he got your attention. So, and you often ask people their favorite breed of dog. For me, that's also attached to the Road Warrior, because he has that dog. It's a blue heeler. And I've never had a dog, but I've always said to myself, if I ever get one, I want that Mad Max dog. I want a blue heeler for that reason. Man.
Oh, you know what? I do ask everyone that I didn't have in yours. Favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie?
I have been amazed watching you ask people this question, because I keep waiting for someone to say my answer, which I always thought would be the most common answer. And I don't think I've heard, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I've heard anyone say Conan the Barbarian.
No one has said it. It's the best.
I mean, I was so into that when I was a kid. Me and my cousin, who we were attached at the hip when we were kids. And to me, I mean, the Terminator is obviously like a great, perfect role for him. Who else could it be? But given who and what he is as an actor, and his accent, and of course like his physicality and stuff, it's perfect. Like you wouldn't walk away from that movie saying, oh, you know, why is he talking like that, or what's up with that accent or whatever. Like it all works perfectly. Like everything works perfectly for that role, and like his size makes sense. Like it all just makes sense. I don't know if that movie in particular, of course, like it comes from like, you know, the comics, it's an old story and stuff like that, but I don't know if they had him in mind when they made, before they even cast the movie. It would make sense to me.
I think they did, actually.
Designed as a vehicle for him, because it's perfect. And you know, it's well done, and like I like the music in that
score
movie.
Is so great.
And you know, just like the folklore of it. James Earl Jones is really great in that movie. Is like it's so well done, and his character is, I mean, I love it. Like I love that movie. I would have told you, in fact, I can remember very clearly, I saw that in the theater when I was a kid, walking out and saying, that's the best movie I've ever seen. And then there was a time later in my life where I look back, it's like, oh my God, that's hilarious. That like over Citizen Kane, or, you know, what, Breathless, or whatever else you could name, is like an all-time great film. And I would kind of laugh about it, like, okay, maybe it's a guilty pleasure. But then even more recently, I went back again. I'm like, no, legit, this is like a pretty great, you know, you're not going to put it right up against Citizen Kane, but it's a good movie. It's well done for what it is. And of that whole franchise, because of course there were subsequent things and even sort of spin-offs in a way. Yeah. But that first one for me is you know, the greatest of them all.
It's good. It hits all the notes, that movie.
I might have to watch it.
Yeah,
I don't think
you
I've
better.
ever seen it.
All right, that's it. We've been served. The Dish by Buck65. Thanks, Buck65, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching this extended content of the DOD45 show. A quick few things. Check out Buck65's Bandcamp. Just search Buck65. I think it's buck65.bandcamp.com. It's got tons and tons and tons of fantastic music for you to listen to there. Also, check out the Vertices Substack. That's where he writes just really wonderful stories and kind of gives you an insight to his life. And he has started an Instagram account now. He's got an Instagram account. I think it's called Vertices Gram, at Vertices Gram.
I think it's just Vertices.
Oh, okay. It's either one of those, but you can find him. And also check out the North American Adonis album. That's Buck65, Dose 1, and Gel. And Buck65's most recent albums, Punk Rock B-Boy and the album Super Dope. And I do want to thank Handsmade Collective. Handsmade's like a...
Did you just say the album is Super Dope? Or the album?
I know, the album's called Super Dope.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going
to... And, but yeah, they're taking orders for the Punk Rock B-Boy on vinyl, and that's through Handsmade. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Handsmade. Zach at Handsmade's doing really fantastic work over there, putting out music, giving us tangible versions of music by terrific artists, and just doing short runs of those things. It's really cool. And I want to just keep pushing people to pay money for music, because if we don't, we're going to be getting shit music for years to come. So support your music, the musicians that you love, especially indie hip hop. Yes, because I love it. And just support the people who make the music that you listen to. All right, Kay, I'll get off my soapbox there. This weekend is my solo show, my gallery show at the Jackson Young Gallery in Wicker Park, Chicago. The show's called Intrinsic, and it's a specific show. It's a art installation of pieces that I made. And the idea is I really think anyone who's collecting the ArtByTai work, or anyone who has any of my work in their collection, this is an exclusive body of work. There are 25 pieces. There's no prints going to be made. This is it. It's all exclusive through Jackson Young Gallery. And I really think if you'll want to have one of these pieces, because it's a style that I don't do. And it's what am I trying to say there? Does that make sense, Adrienne? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not typical of you, of your work. It is, but it also isn't. It's a very clean, but also very fun, funky kind of display of work.
Yeah, they're images, they're drawings of ordinary objects with a nuanced just this weekend Saturday. But the opening,
I was just gonna say you should come to the opening if you can, but the show does run for a full month, I think.
Yes. But the opening reception is really, you want to come have a good time with us. We'll be there. Mr. Dibbs is going to be on the ones and twos. I don't know if they say that anymore, but Mr. Dibbs will be spinning the whole night, like 4 hours. So the night goes. The opening reception is from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. At 7:30 p.m., the Chicago Poetry Ensemble will be performing. It's a group of slam poets. They wrote poems based on each one of these. Not each one of these, but they wrote a poem based on a piece that's in the show, and they'll be performing that at 7:30 p.m. And then earlier in that day at the gallery, we'll be recording our very first live audience episodes of the DOD45 show. At the moment that we're recording this, we're going to be recording with 3 different Chicago-based hip hop artists.
1 episode, 3 people.
2 episodes, 3 people. One episode is with Rich Jones as a Chicago hip hop artist. Another is with Def C of Def Prez, and then another one with the producer Nightwalker. So those guys are Chicago guys. So if you're in Chicago, if you're anywhere near Chicago, you definitely want to come sit in the audience, and also come to the gallery show. I don't know how you plan on fitting all that in. Well, in a real day. I just stack it up, girl.
A good thing there's a coffee shop down the road.
And then next weekend, come see me at Oklahoma City Art Festival. I'll be there, and I'll be slanging some Art by Tai. So that's that, everybody. Thanks for watching us, and we're happy to be back with the DOD45 show, and I'm glad that we're doing this extended content with the dish.
And thanks, Buck.
Yeah, thank you so much, Buck65. It was a blast, and I'm happy that we've continued in contact and still talking. It's my favorite part about the DOD45 show is after the episode, still maintaining friendships with these people who inspire my artwork. So, okay, that's it. This from all of us here, I'd like to wish you happy drawing, happy conversing, and thanks for conspiring with us. I'm Tai of Art by Tai with the lovely Adrienne, and
bye.
Okay, peace.
DOD45.
Thank you for joining in on yet another episode of the DOD45 show. Please hit the subscribe or follow button so that you never miss an episode. You can even go one step further by leaving us a review on the YouTube stream or on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever it is that you stream our show from. You can find me at ArtByTai on all the socials or at ArtByTai.com. And if you'd like to follow the DOD45 show on social media, we're at DOD45W on Instagram, or you can go over to our website at DOD45.com where you can shoot us an email, join our mailing list, and watch all of our past episodes. Consider joining us for a live chat on the YouTube premieres of episodes every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Peace.